Hello and welcome, everyone. We're going to get started. My name is Crystal Chumney, and I'm the Manager of Public Services here at New Canaan Library. We are delighted to welcome best-selling author Ted Bell this evening to discuss his latest novel in the celebrated Hawk series, Overkill. In Overkill, Hawk's limits are tested in a do-or-die showdown with his erstwhile friend, now lethal enemy, Vladimir Putin, in a battle that spans the globe from Siberia to Switzerland, from LA to London, from the Bahamas to Bermuda. Hawk races to find and rescue his young son, Alexei, who mysteriously disappears in a horrific Christmas Day ski gondola accident in St. Moritz. Ooh.
It's very glam.
Theodore A. Bell has 10 consecutive New York Times bestsellers to his credit, 8 of the popular Alex Hawke series of spy thrillers published by HarperCollins, and the young adult Target time travel adventure series Nick of Time and The Time Pirate. Paramount Pictures is now in production with a feature-length film to be titled Hawk. The movie is based on his latest Hawk thriller, Patriot, and is slated for release in 2019. A native Floridian, me too.
Oh, really?
St. Petersburg.
All right.
Mr. Bell graduated from Randolph-Macon College in Virginia, holds an honorary Doctor of Fine Arts degree from Kendall College in Michigan, is an adjunct professor of English literature at Florida Southern College in Lakeland, and former visiting scholar and writer in residence at Cambridge University, UK. At this time, kindly silence your cell phones. And a warm round of applause for Ted.
So thank you all for coming. I appreciate it. So this is the book that came out today, and I'll get to it eventually, but I thought I'd sort of, oh, I like that. No, that's really good. Is there a light here so I can read? But I like this. Mood lighting. Not as good. You know this. You need this one. No, you're doing great. This is good. Oh, I love that. Is there hair and makeup for me at all, or is it too late? So I just thought I'd talk a little bit about how I came to be writing these books. People are surprised sometimes to hear that I actually started writing fiction in the 3rd grade, at the ripe old age of 8. And the reason I did that is my homeroom teacher had this thing where you would write short stories, and if she liked them, she would tack them on the bulletin board with a pen, and students could check them out and read them, take them home and read them. And then there was a thing the next day where you'd write your name down, and you'd write, did you like it, or did you hate it, or whatever. So I got addicted to reviews in the 3rd grade. I would go like a half hour early to homeroom and just read the reviews, because I was fixated on them. And so my topic, this would be in late 50s, UFOs, whoa, I can't touch that, can I? UFOs and were big in my life, and cowboys. So I started writing stories about cowboys and aliens. And so the cowboys would be on the range on a cattle drive, and then UFOs would like swoop in and have these tractor beams, and they lift the cowboys like right off their horses up into them and perform horrible experiments on them. So flash forward like 4 decades, and there's a movie in Hollywood called Cowboys and Aliens. And I said, hold it. I know they steal out there, but they stole this from a 3rd grader, an 8-year-old boy who was writing about cowboys and aliens in 1956. So that gave me a little taste of Hollywood, which has proved to be a lesson. At any rate, so I always wanted to be a writer, but I knew I had to make a living, so I ended up in advertising, which was good, because I got to, stay at fine hotels everywhere and fly around the world. And it was a glamorous job, but I didn't realize at the time it was providing me all this rich experience that I would later put to use in these spy novels, which was good. And so I worked for, I guess, 30 years. I ended up at Y&R as chairman and worldwide creative director, which is a great job, in London. And so my daughter was in the 4th grade, and 4th form, I think they call it. Is that right? You were in school in London. So I'd go up in her room and look at her books, and she's reading these like R.L. Stine. Does anybody remember R.L. Stine? They were like horror books, but about high school, like the teenagers, and the cheerleader thought the quarterback was having an affair with his girlfriend. He murders the quarterback. In the next book, the quarterback murders the head cheerleader. And they were just horrible, horrible, huge bestsellers. So as a literary person who spent his entire life with his nose in a book, I thought, wait a minute, where's Treasure Island? Where's Black Beauty? You know, where's Kidnapped? Where are the Hardy Boys? Where is this? They're not reading any of this in the 4th grade in England. So I reread Treasure Island, and I thought, I got about halfway through, and I said, there's no way she could get through this, because the language is so arcane from Stevenson back in that era. She would be tripping over 2 words a paragraph, and she's just not going to stick with it. So I said, well, I got an idea. I'm going to write a Treasure Island for modern kids. It's not going to be Treasure Island, but it's going to be in that Stevenson mold of grand adventure and the high seas and heroes and pirates. So I started writing a novel there, and it was called Nick of Time, and it's a historical novel about an 11-year-old boy and his 8-year-old sister, Kate, who's the brains of the outfit, and they are the children of a lighthouse keeper in the Channel Islands just prior to the Nazi invasion, 1940, whatever it was. And they discover that their father is spying on U-boats for Churchill. And they say, Dad, can we be spies? So they become spies on this little tiny island based on Sark, which is the smallest of the Channel Islands. There's nothing there but cows. There's no cars, there's nothing. So they're bored. But I had an enormous amount of fun writing that thing. And I think my impetus for writing a children's novel first was, I was terrified of writing a novel for adults. I just didn't think, I don't know if I can do this. But if I'm writing for 8-year-olds, how bad can it be? I mean, are they going to even know if it's bad? You know? So lo and behold, my little story, which I peddled around London forever, and I would go into these publishers in London with my book, which was, you know, this is the second one. This is The Time Pirate. That's the sequel to the first one. But they were big. And these ladies would say to me, what is this? I said, it's a YA book. It's not a YA book. Let me show you a YA book. She pulls out The Indian in the Closet, which is 14 pages long. She said, this is a YA book. They don't have the attention span to read 500 pages. I said, well, they used to. Anyway, St. Martin's published it, and it hit the New York Times list. So that was pretty good. And it's still, thank you, and it's still going strong. And then about 6 months later, Paramount, which comes in the story later, bought the rights to make a movie of it and asked me to write the screenplay. So I'm like 27 years old. I'm saying, good, I'm going to Hollywood. I don't need this advertising stuff anymore. But leaning on Hollywood is a slender reed. As my father used to say, son, you are leaning on a slender reed. And that would be Paramount Pictures in Hollywood when I was 27 years old, and may prove to be once again. But at any rate, it did really well, and then we published the sequel, Time Pirate, which comes after the Nazis have invaded. And it too made the list. And now I'm still, to this day, I want to write the third one, the trilogy. But it was really fun. So flash forward, I retire from Young and Rubicam. I do the age-old tradition, I move to Palm Beach. Well, it's true. And start playing golf and hanging out in these places. And I said, you know what, I can't play golf all the time. I want to write a grown-up book. And so I was enormously influenced by Ian Fleming. And I discovered the James Bond books probably the summer I was 13 or 14. I read every one of them. And I'm in a little town where excitement is sticking playing cards in your wheel of your bicycle to make a clack, clack, clack noise. It's like, whoa, that's really cool. But now I'm reading about this guy, there's bombs and bullets and babes and martinis and Aston Martins and PJs and whatever he had. And it just opened my eyes to this world. was out there, and I realized I want to be part of that. And I think that's ultimately what sort of drove me to leave home and go to New York and get a job and that, whatever. But Ian Fleming is a huge idol of mine, and I know everything about him because I've read about him, every word that's ever been written about him. But I was learning a lot when I was reading those books. I didn't even know it. So I said, well, I'm going to do a spy thriller. And what am I going to call this guy? Do you guys know where the name James Bond came from? Does everybody know that story? No. Who knows?
He was like a horticulturalist.
Sort of. So, yeah, sort of. Close. 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 Warmer. Cold. So Fleming is at Goldeneye, which was his house in Jamaica that his wife Anne hated, so he had a lot of time down there by himself. And he sits down, and somebody gave him a golden typewriter, 18-karat golden typewriter. So he's going to write. He decides he's going to write about his wartime adventures as a naval intelligence officer, where he was very successful. And so he's looking for a name for the character, and he's just looking at his bookshelf, and there's a book called Birds of the Eastern Caribbean by James Bond. Bing. That's a true story. So I didn't have a name for my guy. Fleming wanted a deliberately boring, gray name. I didn't want a boring, gray name. I wanted, like, a name. And one of the characters in Nick of Time is a 5-year-old who's held captive by an evil pirate named Billy Blood. And this is back in time. And his name is Alex Hawke. And his father is Lord Hawke. His grandfather is Lord Hawke. Alex Hawke, I'll take him. So the character of these books is born in Nick of Time. And so I started to think about this guy, and for some reason he just sort of materialized. And I just took everything that I liked and admired in masculine, heroic figures. And I wanted him to look like Errol Flynn. So bing, he looks like Errol Flynn. Who do I want him to talk like? William Powell, the Thin Man. Flynn meets Powell. So I worked with that. And to this day, that's who he is. He's got a really dry sense of humor. Hawke had no sense of humor. I mean, Bond had no sense of humor. None. Think about it. You ever say anything funny? I mean, in the movies he does, but those are written by screenwriters. And they're all sexual double entendres, right? You know. But I wanted my guy to be legitimately funny. And so he is. And then I figured, all right, what would Fleming do? Really, really nasty villain. So, it's a long story. But I figured out a really horrible, horrible villain for the first book. And then I said, all right, that's 2 down. Girlfriend. Got to have a good girlfriend. Bond was great at girlfriends, or not so great. So, so for Hawke's girlfriend, I chose a woman from Washington named Dr. Victoria Sweet, who's a lovely woman who worked with mentally challenged children in Washington and wrote illustrated children's books for young girls, young kids. Loved her. And she was from Mississippi, because I'm from the South. So she was a Southern belle, but she was a lovely, lovely woman. So he falls in love with her and he marries her. So I figured I'm set. Every book from now on, I need a new villain and a new girlfriend. That's my formula. And you'll see it in evidence today if you happen to read this book. Very much in evidence. But my editor at Simon & Schuster, Emily Bestselling from Martinsville, Virginia, said, Ted, what are you going to do with Vicki in the new book? I said, what do you mean what am I going to do with her? She said, well, you got to get rid of her. I said, yeah, you're right. Well, I can't have her dump him, because that makes him look like a dope. And I can't have him dump her, because then she's a jerk. She said, just think about it. Call me when you have something. So I had this idea for the next book. So I said, Emily, what if Hawke and Vicki get married? And there's this like silence. And she said, are you out of your mind? Are you seriously insane? He can never get married, ever. I said, yeah, but what? What if he gets married in this like fairy tale wedding in the Cotswolds with the Royal Navy swords and the royal families there, and it's a Tatler magazine and all this stuff. What if they get married and she doesn't quite survive the ceremony? And she said, what? I said, she doesn't quite make it through the ceremony. She said, what happens to her? I said, well, they come down the aisle and they go out into the glorious spring sunshine, and the naval officer's there with cross swords, and he's like bending to kiss her, and a sniper shoots her in the heart in her bride dress on the steps of the church. You got to do this stuff. I mean, you can't, it can't be Susie gets a hickey at the drive-in. I mean, it's got to be serious stuff. So she said, that is horrible. And I said, I know it's horrible. But is it good horrible or is it bad horrible? She said, it is great horrible. Do it. Kill that woman. So, so on we go. I want to just describe Alex Hawke because it'll help you understand who this guy is. I told you a little bit about Powell and Flynn. He's a child of privilege. His title is Lord Alexander Hawke. He's the 6th richest man in England. So he's got yachts, houses in Bermuda. He's got everything. Everything I want, I gave to him. So he's 6'3". He has what they refer to as unruly black hair and eyes that a London gossip columnist called to pools of frozen Arctic rain. And then someone was quoted saying, Alexander Hawke is a man whom men would like to stand to drink and women would much prefer horizontal. That's him, He's a former Royal Navy fighter pilot, shot down over Afghanistan, and then becomes an MI6 counter-terrorist officer. And he is funny and charming and everything, but he's a total killer. He's a creature of radiant violence. On the night he was born in Hawksmoor, their house in the Cotswolds, his father said, my son is a boy born with a heart for any fate. And that's who he is. He is my hero, to the best that I can do. And so this is number 10. And I'm really proud of it. It's been a long road, a decade or more. And in searching for, let me backtrack a little bit. 10 years ago, I wrote a book called Tsar, T-S-A-R. And in that book, I introduced Putin as a major character in the book. And nobody was talking about Putin 10 years ago, trust me, in my business. It was all Abu al-Dabar, Baghdadi, blah, blah. I said, I don't want to write about these guys. I can't say their names. I can't spell their names. I don't like deserts. I hate camels. I'm not going there. That's really what you think. I'm a shallow person. at bottom, yeah. As my friend of mine said, when we were standing at the shallow end of the Beverly Hills pool, she said, Ted, I love the shallow end. It reminds me so much of all your friends. That's in a book. So, onward. I've had Putin off, in and out. But in Tsar, how am I doing on time, by the way? I tend to blather on. Are we doing good?
You're great.
So I knew I wanted to have Putin in the book because I was fascinated by him. For me, he's got that Mona Lisa smile. You know that little grin? He's that sidewise, where he's got that little grin or something. I said, there's a lot going on up there that we don't know about. And so I started reading about him. Went to Moscow, St. Petersburg, all over, had interviews, was supposed to meet him, didn't happen. And I was just fascinated with him. So in Tsar, I brought him in. And there's a great scene in Tsar where Putin has been deposed and is in prison. It's a prison called Energetica, which is built atop the Russian Navy's nuclear waste site. So it's this towering edifice that is crisp black everywhere. It's just black. It's like radioactive, the whole prison. It's like Roach Motel. You check in, but you don't check out. So Hawk is in love with a woman, a Romanov, whose father, Count Romanov, is the one who got threw Putin out and put him in this prison. But Hawk is in love with the guy's daughter, and he tries to help Putin. But he gets caught, and he ends up in jail with Putin. Putin's down in the dungeon. He's up. He's going to be executed at dawn. Peter the Great had a way of killing people called an impalement yard, which were trees that were sharp at the top. That's all you need to know. And that's the way Hawk was going to check out the next morning. So they come to get him at dawn, and he thinks he's going to go out to the yard and meet his maker. But they take him downstairs, and they take him to this cell, and there's Putin. He's in the cell. It's lead-lined. He's got TV. He's got, he's paid off a lot of people. And they throw Hawk in the cell. And so Putin says to him, I am so happy to meet you. I have been admiring your work for MI6 for years. You, I think, are perhaps the most brilliant intelligence officer. I want to talk to you about maybe coming over to KGB. That was ridiculous. I mean, Hawk is like a friend of the Queen. He's not going to go to Russia and work for KGB. But they end up sitting on Putin's cot, or his bed, drinking vodka and smoking cigarettes all night long, and become really good friends. Now, that's a strange idea for a spy novel, to have your hero friends with the guy everybody thinks is the most evil man in the world. But I did it. And so I've carried him in and out for 9 books. So this time, I wanted to give Putin a real challenge. So I had the oligarchs in Moscow, so rich and so powerful now in the Kremlin. They said, we don't need this guy anymore. So they start trying to kill him. I mean, he's like 9 assassination attempts every week. Poison and blah, blah, blah. So he finally figures he better get out of town. So in the middle of the night, he has his pilot meet him at a secret landing strip, and they take off for Nice, because he's got a yacht called Tsar, actually, and it's like a 250-foot bright red yawl, and he's going to escape there and go to the South Seas with one of the stewardesses on his airplane. I think he's divorced now. Actually, I heard that. So he's on the plane, and they're flying to Nice, and all of a sudden, the 2 stewardesses like pitch forward like that, and he's like feeling like really weird, and he realizes there's no oxygen coming into the cabin. So he gets up, and he's got an emergency pack, and he kicks in the door to the cockpit, and the pilot and co-pilot have turned off the air to the cabin, and they've got oxygen masks on. So they have been paid off by the oligarch to kill him in the back. I'm telling too much about this, but it's pretty funny. So he shoots these, he shoots these, what? It's funny to me. So he shoots these 2 guys, straps on a parachute. He's got a bunch of gold and vodka and cigarettes and food in his pack. And he just bails out somewhere. He steps off into the dirty sherbet skies of France, as it says in the book. And now he's wandering around France, most famous face in the world, with nobody, with nothing. And he's like stealing from trash cans to eat at night, and traveling by night. And he finds this little woodcutter's cabin in the woods. This is in Provence. And he just knocks on the door, and there's this little French woodcutter there, whose name is Guy. And Putin says, I don't have any place to stay. So he starts living with the guy, Guy, and they become best friends. They're like stealing chickens from farmers. And, I mean, it's like I'm telling you, this is not your typical Tom Clancy. I don't spend a lot of time talking about cartridges. You know what I mean? Gun barrel rifling. I don't think so it's this charming thing. I'd love it to see in the movie. And they're pals, and they're having a great time. And one night, a rainy night, this girl shows up at the door. She's lost, and they take her in. They're both in love with her. They're like fighting over her. And it's hysterical. Anyway. So I'm figuring that Putin, who's I think he's worth $40 billion, but that might be conservative. He's a really rich guy. But the oligarchs have been stealing all his gold from Switzerland. It's all buried in underground inside the Alps, massively protected. But they've been looting it. And so they've got a lot of his gold. So he's pissed, he's upset. And so he decides, what if I get the gold back? And not just my gold, I'm gonna take more gold, right? 70% of the world's gold is in those mountains. That's just the truth. And so he decides to steal all this stuff. And the reason I like this idea is my favorite Bond movie was always Goldfinger. And I remember being a kid and seeing the trailer. And it was like, these guys are going to rob Fort Knox? Are you kidding? Fort Knox? I mean, to a little kid, that was the safest place on earth. That's the way, Fort Knox was synonymous with safety. And just the idea that anybody could try to rob that. I said, I got to see that movie. I'm going to see that movie. So now I'm thinking about what am I going to do for Putin? I think, what's even harder? Switzerland. Much harder than Fort Knox. Really hard. So then I had to figure out a way to get an armed invasion force inside of Switzerland in the middle of the night and go up into the mountains and try to steal all the gold. So that's sort of the plot of Overkill. And at the same time, Putin, to keep Hawk away from him, Alex and Alexei, his 7-year-old son, are in San Moritz for Christmas, and Alexei's in when the kids come down the mountains with the torches on Christmas Day, that's like the nighttime torches come down the ski mountains. Anyway, he's going to be in the show. So Hawk takes him up in the gondola with all the ski school kids, and there's something wrong with the tram support, and it snaps at 15,000 feet, and they're hanging upside down. And the only way, this is the beginning of the book, the only way to get them out is helicopter. But, it's tricky. So there's like 25 kids in the ski school. They evacuate them first, and then the adults, and they send them to 2 different hospitals. And when Hawk goes to the hospital to get his son, they don't have any record of him. It's tough. And that sort of starts the wheels in motion. So those are the 2 parallel storylines that are going to find the kid before Putin shoots him, and then stop him from getting all the gold. So anyway, now you probably know much more than you ever wanted to know about Alex Hawk. Very funny. But it is funny. So just on a lighter note, I was really happy a few months ago when Paramount Pictures came to me with an offer to buy all of my novels with rights to turn them into big major action summer blockbuster movies. And so the first one they're making is based on Patriot, which is the one before this, but we're calling it Hawk. And Hollywood never fails to amaze me. It's very interesting. There's a book about Hollywood called Hello, He Lied. Not that they're lying to me. But anyway, I'm going out there next week to have a meeting with them. And it's a really fun way, because I probably have secretly wanted to have a movie made of my books since I was a little kid. And it's happening. It's a dream come true. So I'm happy to share my little tale with you, and I hope you enjoy it, and hope you enjoy the book if you decide you want to read it. Thanks very much. What's happening? Oh, Q&A.
Yes.
I love Q&A.
All right. Thank you so much, Ted. So we're going to do a little Q&A, and afterwards we're going to have a little book signing. So who wants to ask Ted pressing questions? All right.
Yes. Oh, sorry.
You know who's going to be cast as
I knew you would ask that question.
I don't want people to know.
It's the first question. It's been an interesting... How is time, by the way? I want to curtail my answer. I feel like I've been here for an hour. All right. It's just, okay. So the first thing that happened, this is like now 6 years ago, we get a call from Tom Cruise. Wants to play the character. So now there are like 5 books out. Now there are 10, but at this point there's like 5. And he wants to be Alex Hawk. And I go, oh, great, sort of. And But they offered to fly me out and have a meet with Tom and his business partner and the producers. And so I'm sitting in the Admirals Club at Miami, because I was living in PB, and I'm depressed. I'm getting ready to fly to LA. Tom Cruise is paying my way. I'm going to talk to Tom, probably go to Spago, you know. So, and I'm depressed. And finally I'm walking down the jetway to get on the plane, and it hit me like a lightning bolt. I said, I know why I'm depressed. I hate Tom Cruise. I hate him. It's the last person I want to have in my movie. So I got through the meeting, and everything they said, I just made it impossible for them to like me. Who do you see as doing the wardrobe? That would be Ralph Lauren. Who do you see as doing the music? That would be Paul McCartney. Who do you see? I just made impossible demands into me because I knew I didn't ever want to do it. And they didn't have any more fun than I did in that meeting. And this producer who put this all together would go out to the office, and we're in the elevator going back down the street. And he said, God, that was fabulous. I said, Graham, that was a great meeting, Ted. I've been in a lot of these meetings. That one was great. I said, that was a great meeting? Anyway. So then people started to come, and Johnny Depp came, and this is like when he was younger, and he was a big deal then, and I think he's a brilliant actor. I don't think he's physically my guy, but I think he could do anything, acting back then especially. So I went out and had a meeting with Christy Depp, who's his sister, to talk about Johnny. And when the meeting was over, I said, Christy, I just have to ask you a question. Johnny lives in France, right? Yeah, with the famous model, yeah. I don't see Johnny walking down Concourse A at LAX, catching the noon balloon to Paris, looking for a book in the bookstore. It's not going to happen. How did he discover my books? She said, Danny Depp, not known to many people, our brother is a screenwriter here in Hollywood. He read all your books, loved them, sent them to Johnny in France, and said, you got to read these. You'd be great. You'd love it. And he did. He wanted to do it. So anyway, a lot of discussion, a lot of meetings, stuff happened, and it fell down. I don't remember why. And then a week later, Hugh Jackman. I'm not making this up. I mean, it ain't bragging if it's true. So now I got Hugh Jackman and his business partner, and we're all in these meetings, and I keep noticing that Hugh and the business partner have the same ring. So I asked my producer about it. He said, yeah, there were 3 rings at that wedding ceremony. Hugh, the wife, and the business partner. So they each got a ring. So, that's interesting. I did a little inside Hollywood stuff here. So, I get it. Anyway, so Hugh and the business partner had a falling out. And with that deal fell apart. But he did say to me, I love this character. If you ever have a script, I'd like to read it. But now he's too old, I think. He's 49? Hawk is 33. But he doesn't feel right to me anymore. So anyway, the 2 front runners now are Chris Hemsworth, chick magnet, right? I mean, boy candy, whatever they call it. What do they call it? Eye candy, that's right, eye candy. What do I call it? Boy candy. Boy candy. Boy candy's not bad. Boy candy's not bad. We can start that. Boy candy. So, what? So I saw him in Rush, the Ron Howard Formula One racing movie, playing the British aristocratic playboy race driver, and he just was he was sensational. I mean, he was Hawk to me, and we've been talking to him, and my executive producer Lorenzo is the guy who does all the Transformer movies, and so he works with. I mean, it's an easy thing if that needs to happen. But now I have a new favorite. Is Tom Hardy? Do people know? Somebody I was talking to knows Tom Hardy. He's a great actor. And he did a movie called Legend where he played the 2 Cray brothers. Did anybody see that movie? It was a great movie. He plays these two. He plays these.
Probably one of the most talented people right now.
He plays the Cray brothers, who were gangsters, vile gangsters in the Beatles era London, who terrorized London for years and years. And one brother was like this psychopathic, sadist gay guy and the other is this charming, debonair ladies' man. And I didn't know anything about him. I went to see the movie, and I asked this friend of mine who recommended it. I said, God, that movie was incredible. It was fabulous. She said, yeah, Tom Hardy was in it. I said, yeah, was he Ronnie or was he Greg? Both. He was playing both roles the whole movie. Most phenomenal piece of acting I've ever seen. But I've always believed that Sean Connery was a brilliant choice when everybody hated him. Ian Fleming hated him. You know who Ian Fleming wanted? Hoagie Carmichael. He was a friend of his. I said, what has he ever done? He played the piano in Key Largo. That's Hoagie. That was Ian's first choice. His second choice, slightly better but stupid, was David Niven, also a friend of his. But the reason that Connery, I think, was so powerful is that he's just got this deep sort of animal magnetism. I mean, in the way he walks and he just oozes this stuff. And I think that's how he created Bond. And I think that Tom Hardy has a lot of that as well. And I think it would be great for his career, and it'd certainly be great for mine. So go Tom.
So I've enjoyed your prior books.
Sorry?
No, don't be sorry.
I didn't hear what you said. No, I'm not saying. I'm sorry. I didn't hear what you said.
So I was wondering, since so much of the action has taken place at sea, what's your own nautical experience?
Nautical experience?
Yeah.
That's good. So I grew up in Florida, and in a sailing family. And my grandfather was an ocean racing sailor, and we had a beautiful schooner named Rambler, and he won it was the forerunner to the SORC, which is Southern Ocean Racing Circuit. It was a race from St. Petersburg Yacht Club to Havana Yacht Club. It went on all during the 40s, and I think he won it 8 times. So I spent my life growing up on sailboats with him, and then my 2 uncles were both national champion sailors. I grew up around boats, and I've had a bunch of them, sailboats and powerboats. And I've just always loved boats. It's a big passion of mine. So, but I think I learned more about boats as I use them in the Patrick O'Brien, Aubrey Maturin books about, certainly for Nick of Time, just, the Royal Navy and real seamanship and all that sort of stuff. So just all reading.
Thank you.
Oh, I have one before anyone. So where are you from in Florida?
Tampa.
Oh, well,
I was born in Tampa.
we are like neighbors.
Right across the bay.
More questions? Oh, okay.
Do you get involved at all in doing the screenplay? Do you have oversight of it, or how do
Yeah,
you?
no, that's a totally reasonable question. When you get on a film as a writer, you're sort of one step below the caterer. So, but you're not on the bottom. The bottom are the drivers, that drive you to the set. Then me, then catering, then wardrobe. I mean, it's like, the only power I have is Lorenzo Di Bonaventura is the executive producer. He's actually from Greenwich. I don't know if anybody knew that, but he was CEO of Warner Brothers for 10 years and did all the Harry Potter movies. He left to start his own company, and the first thing he did was Matrix. He did Perfect Storm. He did Deepwater Horizon. He did Salt. He did G.I. Joe. He did, and now he's doing this. And he is quoted as saying, "Alex Hawke is my James Bond." Now, if that's true, all bets are off. But the screenwriter is a guy named Kurt Wimmer, who wrote Thomas Crown Affair and Salt, and what else did he write? Some other big names. So in the beginning, the early days, when he's just getting started, we Skyped. And he'd read me what he was writing, and I'd criticize it or tell him. But it's not, they don't really want me to, I've written like 5 screenplays. I could do it. I don't want to do it. I don't want to be in that position. And I haven't read the script yet, which is a little frustrating. One of the things I'm going to LA for. But I'm probably not going to be happy. And when we had our first conference call with the screenwriter Lorenzo, myself, and my agent Peter McGuigan, and I listened to everything they were saying about what they were envisioning as this book was going to be turned into a movie. And I sat down and wrote a 3-page memo about everything I thought was wrong with their ideas. But I didn't send it. I learned in advertising, if you pause before you hit send, don't send. And I was pausing. So I sent it to my guy at CAA, John Levin, and he said, "Did you send this to Lorenzo?" I said, "No, I'm sending it to you." He said, "Ted, this would be insane. This man has made billions of dollars for every studio in this town, and you want to write him a 3-page email criticizing a screenplay you haven't even read yet?" Yeah, you're probably right. Bad idea. So sometime in 2019, I hope we'll all be going to the movies and seeing Alex Hawk.
Maybe you can get us a pre-screening. More questions? Oh, okay.
Would you like to be on the set?
Sure, love it. Love it, love it.
An option for you?
That would be fine because we all get along. If I was like a pain in the butt, they'd say keep him off. But since we all love each other, it's like it'll be fine. So that's okay. So I can say a comment like I didn't like that take, but they don't have to listen to me. The only reason that I have any power at all is they see this as a huge franchise that's going to go out, blow out over time. They want me to be happy. They don't want me going to Hollywood Reporter and saying, "God, Lorenzo, I don't think he knows what he's doing." You know, they want me to be happy. So that's my only power. But yeah, it's a whole new world for me. Hemingway had a great line about selling your book to Hollywood. He said, "If you ever sell a book to Hollywood, throw the book in the back of your convertible, drive as fast as you can to the California border, stop at the gate, get out of your car, get your book, throw it over the fence, get in your car and go back to Mississippi. You're done." So if Hemingway felt that way. Hello?
They're thinking it's a huge franchise, and they started with a book just before this one. They're counting on you to write many more books. Are they going to go
They're
backwards?
10. They're 10 written.
I know there are 10, but are they going to go backwards?
No, I hope they're going to go here. I'd love to see war in Switzerland on the screen. I mean, those picture postcard towns with jets, you know, and I mean, seriously. And can I say one more thing? What's really fascinating about this is the Swiss army is one of the Israelis study them. You never see them, but there's at least 1 million men under arms in Switzerland. And once you join the Swiss army, you're in it until you die. And so you have a rifle under your bed for the rest of your life, and there are these points where you gather in the event of any kind of attack. But what's really cool is the Air Force, all the jets are in hangars inside the mountains. Huge cavernous hangars full of fighter jets, and they have high-speed aircraft carrier elevators systems that take them up to 15,000 feet, and then they have runways cut through the rock where they catapult them out into the sky at 15,000 feet. And there's no Air Force bases. They use highways at night to land and take off. It's awesome. So, I mean, war in Switzerland needs to get on a big screen.
More questions?
What's that?
I was asking if there are more questions because that was a good selling point for your film.
Yeah.
I hope there's a scene at Tea Kettle Cottage.
Yes. There was a great scene at Tea Kettle Cottage. We were just in Bermuda a couple of months ago, and somebody stopped us in the lobby, and he recognized me. He said, "Ted, I'm a huge fan. Where is Tea Kettle Cottage? My mom and I have been looking for it all day." I said, "Well, it's Hawk's house in Bermuda, and it's an old sugar mill. So it's like a round dome, and then it's got a chimney that's tilted like that. So it's like a spout. So it's called Tea Kettle Cottage. I totally made it up. So yeah, so he lives there, and all the famous people that stay there and left furniture, right? Errol Flynn and Howard Hughes. Yeah, it's cool. So I hope there will be Tea Kettle Cottage. The end of this book happens at Tea Kettle Cottage, and it's not good. You know Pelham, right?
Yes,
The 80-year-old.
right. Is he still with us?
He's with us,
Okay, good.
but he's in big trouble. Because can I reveal the name of my villain? The villain, not the plot, just the name of the villain. It's like the greatest villain name that's ever happened. There's a new villain, and he's a West Texas rodeo star turned Army Ranger from Fort Bragg, 3 or 4 tours, ends up in CIA, ends up in Berlin, ends up getting thrown out of the CIA because he murdered his wife, decapitated her. He's a full-blown psychopath. He's the worst, and he looks like Sam Shepard. And he's got like a foot-long Bowie knife strapped to his calf. And he's from Hyco, Texas. He's from West Texas. And his name? Shit Smith. I'm just saying, that character's going to outlive me. I'm telling you. I do make this shit up. Somebody says, that's my real name, ain't it, boss? And he says, well, you were shit to me then, you're shit to me now. But he's a really horrible, horrible villain. And he's got Pelham in his clutches in Tea Kettle Cottage and Hawks up the beach. And he calls him and says, you better come home. Pelham's in big trouble. So, just told you a little thing, it's plot alert, plot spoiler, or whatever they call it.
Of all the Hawk books, what's your favorite book?
Czar. Czar is my favorite, because it's the best love story. It's a really, really powerful love story at the heart of that book, between Hawk and Anastasia Korsakova. Was it great? Am I still talking, or are you?
Yeah.
Are you?
I just was curious.
No. Can I tell you the opening of the Czar? So this is my friend Victoria de la Masa here. So I was going to tell this in the beginning, but I forgot to tell it. I'll tell it now because it's really funny. So in the beginning of Czar, Hawk is in a Tea Kettle Cottage, and his Royal Navy exercise routine is to swim 3 miles in open ocean, go to this little beach, deserted little beach nobody ever goes, go to sleep, get up, swim 3 miles back, and that's his day. So he does it every day. So in the beginning of this book, it's called Bloody Beach. He swims up there, takes his bathing suit off, hangs it on a mangrove, lies down on his back in the sun and goes to sleep. Wakes up, sees this big blue towel on the beach about 10 feet away from him with a big K and a gold crown over it. But there's nobody there. He's like furious. Why would somebody come to a beach like this and put a towel there when there's a nude guy asleep on the beach? It's insane. Who would do that? Minutes later, this woman emerges from the sea like Ursula Andress in Dr. No. And she's wearing 50% of her bikini, and she's got a spear gun, and she's got the shells. And so he's standing there looking down at him, and he says he feels like a spider impaled on a lepidologist board, or whatever the hell those people were called. And she's just staring at him, and he keeps looking at her like this, and she said, are you looking at your bathing suit? And he goes, And she said, I shouldn't worry about that, Mr. Hawk. That horse left the barn a long time ago. That's the opening line of the book. You get a sense of the flavor of these things. A little risque, right? Lori is shocked. Shocked, I tell you. All right.
Oh, okay.
In your mind, does Hawk have a basic formula? I mean, so many parts ninja, so many parts Rambo, so many parts John Wayne cowboy, or you just have this image of this character and he just goes with the flow as the plot unfolds?
In the first book, he's on the eve of his 7th birthday, and he's with his parents in the Caribbean. His father's an admiral in the Royal Navy, and he's just his wife and his son, and they're fishing all day, and they're swimming, and his mom's teaching him the name of all the tropical fishes, and he's in heaven. His next day is his birthday. That night, in the middle of the night, his father comes to his cabin and tells him, just come with me, come with me. And he takes him to the bow, to the anchor locker, and there's a louvered door, and he puts him behind the door and says, lock it from the inside. Don't open this door until you hear 3 knocks. And he said, Dad, what's going on? He said, I don't know, I hear noises up on the deck, so I'm going to go check it out. Cut a long story short, he can't go anywhere. He's in that little V-shaped room. And so these horrible Caribbean drug pirates who've been stalking his mom since she came into some Staniel Key yacht club with all this jewelry on, they've been stalking him. to steal her jewelry. And they horrifically murder the mom and then the father, and then they leave. And he's stuck there behind the door for like 5 days, drifting. So he's got a really powerful sense of good and evil. And that's when he makes the determination that I will fight for the weak and protect them. That's his character. It's not Rambo. It's just a powerful moral compass based on his first childhood experience. Okay.
Buy all the books so you can read all about his adventures.
Yay. Thank you.
So there's still Overkill for sale in the back via Elm Street Books. Thank you very much. And if you'll give us a moment, we'll set up book signing for Ted.